blinds are not turned on that side. We can't close the partition. And in the other rooms where we met before, they are installing the computers this morning and the wiring, and so unfortunately we can't be in there, so we'll have to make the best of this. And the PowerPoint presentation is not going to be as
dramatic.
what do I want to say? It's not, won't be as well illuminated as it could be, so it may be difficult to see. But we are fortunate to have Mary Rubin, who's a project director for the San Jose Public Art. It's a public art program. Makes sense. She knows the most about the art installations, probably with the exception of Mel Chin, who is the artist, about the art installations that will decorate the library and make it really a particularly unique kind of building. And so I'll turn it over to her and she can tell you about it, and there will be time at the end for questions if people have them. Is that okay?
Yeah, actually, please ask questions while we're going through this. Okay. Well, first thing I want to ask, does anybody speak Spanish here? Okay, so what does this word mean?
Memories or recollections?
You can't read it.
Recollections.
So Mel has named this piece Recollecciones. Is that how you pronounce it, those who speak Spanish?
Right.
Did I do well enough? It is the public art for the collection for the Joint Library, for the Martin Luther King Library. And there have been a host of characters that have worked on this project. I don't know how much. Does anybody know anything about this, or are we just starting right from the beginning? Well, I'm going to start from the beginning, yeah. Okay. So Mel Chin was selected from through a competitive process where we invited a number of artists to submit conceptual proposals for the project. We had a professional panel of people like an art and history and technology writer for the New York Times, an artist from Minneapolis, a public artist, the collector, the director of the Stewart Collection down in San Diego, another public artist from San Francisco, and the Dean of Fine Arts from San Jose State University, and actually another teacher from San Jose State University. So there was a professional panel that actually interviewed 5 different artist teams, and part of the requirement for the artist teams was that they would, part of the requirement for the artists was that they work with a multidisciplinary team. Because it's a library, because of the joint nature of this library, because of the collaborative nature of this library, it was thought that there should be a consistency of the approach to this building that was seen through the public art. So, among other proposals, Mel came in with the proposal that he would work with a number of historians and different researchers, as well as the community as his collaborator. So when he came in to do the interview, he came in with Hans Sassi, who is the chair of Asian languages at Stanford University. And what they proposed at the time was to do a number of sculptural insertions that somehow related to or paid homage to the book collection. And in the same way that somebody would walk into the library and look for one book and browse the stacks to find the book, in that process of browsing the stacks, they might find 3 other books that were just as significant as the initial book that they were looking for. So in that way, his point is, I'm trying to somehow reinforce the concept of circulation through the library. It's to pay homage to the book collection and to create kind of a reinforcement of the idea of circulation through the building. Why don't we go to the next slide? So what Mel did is well, when he first hit town, of course, he doesn't know anything about San Jose, except what he reads in the newspapers. We hooked him up with a number of historians, and the historians took both Mel and Hans Saucy, and I think Bob Batchelor, who is a professor of history, was a professor of history at Stanford University, and maybe James Millar was also there. James Millar is a printmaker and a hack researcher, just amazing researcher, who has worked with Mel before. These historians took us around the city and familiarized Mel with the city. Public art is not about an artist manifesting artwork through their own filter. What they do is they come into any given community, and through working with community, through understanding the community, they use the community as a catalyst for their ideas. Okay, versus a gallery artist or a studio artist who is self-generating the majority of their ideas. And this is a gross generalization, of course. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you probably mentioned this, but where is he from, Mel Chin?
I'll get there, actually.
Oh, okay, I didn't miss it then.
You didn't miss
Okay.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Next slide. So, again, this idea of working with these researchers, working with these educators, working with these historians, but also working with the community as a collaborator. So, in order to do that, we held a series of maybe 12 meetings. Actually, for the overall project, there were over 22 public meetings. But the initial meetings, there were probably close to a dozen meetings in different branch libraries in the convention center. And in these meetings, Mel said things like, he asked questions like, what's your favorite book? What do you collect? What's special about San Jose? I can't remember all of the questions at this point. But you will see, when we talk about some of these pieces, how the input from the community, how the input from these meetings, how the discussions with different user groups, like the librarians, affected and actually catalyzed the pieces. So what you have here is a community meeting. If you can see it, the ghost of a community meeting. Then you have Mel in his design process. So what he did is he took the information from the community meetings. He and his team did charrettes. So they got together and they designed, basically. And that's kind of, these are actually pretty funny slides. And again, I don't know how well you can see them. But there was paper everywhere, strewed everywhere, up on every wall, every square inch. These people are incredibly creative. They have, in a sense, their ideas are a dime a dozen. They have a million ideas. If one idea gets thrown out, there's another one right there. It's a pretty amazing thing. And I should also back up and say that Mel has, in all of his work, he's known for his collaborations. He's worked with doctors, he's worked with film producers. He did a big project that was putting insertions within the sets of Melrose Place, the TV show. So this concept is, in a sense, taking that idea of these insertions and blowing it up. And I'm going to give you one example before we kind of get into it. What we heard when we sat and listened to him the initial time is you'd walk into the library, and in the library, like any library, you'd see a sea of wood tables, or laminated tables these days. And amongst those tables that are so typical, you'd see a big stone table, and you'd think, well, why is there a stone table? And then you'd look around and you'd see that you're in the archaeology section. So in that way, the work pays homage to the book collection. It is inciting curiosity. It's getting people to think. If you start getting what he's doing, you're going to start looking around for cues to try to understand the context with the work. And that's one of the things that you guys will be really instrumental in providing when you walk people through the library, when you talk about the pieces, is helping them understand the context and the site specificity of the piece. So why don't we go to the next slide, Brooke? Oh, actually, I didn't introduce Brooke Willard, who is the program coordinator, public art program. Big boo. Can we see this at all?
Burnsville.
Burnsville. Well, Mel lives between New York and Burnsville, North Carolina. He lives on Hoggs Branch Road in Higgins, which is in Yancey County, Egypt Township in North Carolina. And although his house is in Higgins, the barn is in East Higgins. Higgins has, maybe 9 people that live in it. And it's really kind of a beautiful place, and I don't know if you can tell it all, but the small building is where he and his wife live. The big building is the studio. I guess next slide. Yikes. I am talking completely off of these slides this morning, guys, and I'm having trouble seeing them. This is the workshop, and this is a barn with tobacco in it. It's a big complex. I guess that's all I'm going to say. Let's go to the next slide. I guess I have to just stop for a second. How well can you see these pieces? Not at all.
I can see that.
From
From
there.
there.
You can see?
Yeah, but we have it on our paper. You can see this on.
Well, I'm wondering if we should crowd around the computer. What do you guys think?
We have it on our paper.
Well, what you have are drawings on your paper. Okay, I'll keep talking. So, when you guys get tired of this, let me know. Because there are other ways to do this. The Tree of Light is the fixture over the storytelling area. It's this fixture over the ceiling of the storytelling area. And has everybody been to the storytelling area?
Buy it. We have-
By it? So you've been in the children's area?
What number is it in the book? We can look in the book. Number 5.
A lot of our fairy tales come from nomadic tribes. Fairy tales have been handed down from nomadic tribes. And Mel, knowing this, was compelled to somehow reflect that in the children's area. So if you notice the carpet of the children's area, it has these big kind of geometric shapes. And those big geometric shapes have their inspiration from a shape called a gull in traditional nomadic carpets. Okay? Well, if you take that gull shape and you bring it up in 3 dimensions, that's what, again, inspires the shape of the storytelling area. Okay? Well, it also inspires the shape of the computer table and some of the furniture in the storytelling area, or in the children's area. Well, above the storytelling area, there is a piece called Tree of Light. And Tree of Light takes its inspiration from the Sephardic tree, which is actually a map of the nature of reality. Well, it's a map of nature and reality that comes from the Kabbalah. So if you look up at this piece, which is a huge piece, and it was a huge coordination between the architectural program and the public art program, you can see the shape of the Sephardic tree. And again, this kind of is calling back to, or going back and recalling the mystical influences that we have from kind of the universe. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
The telephone training room, which is just over here, is not being used right now, and it's totally dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a screen and a plug. If you want to take 15 minutes, 10 minutes, we can hook up in there.
I'm fine with that. Would it help you guys? I think it would help a lot to be able to see the images.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay, sorry, it shouldn't.
Eventually, they will all have their own kind of myth and folklore that is associated with them. And their own stories start developing. So he wants that mystery to be maintained.
That makes it easy for the coaches.
Well, what I'm gonna help you out a little bit. Yeah, exactly. It
What do
makes
you
it easy
think?
for the docents because you can make stuff up.
Yeah.
And he doesn't mind. But what I'll say about that is we're trying to start on the same page. And that's why, and Nancy and I have been talking about this, that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna come back again and again. And I'm gonna walk, whoever wants to be, walk through the building so you can see how to talk about them. I mean, I'm giving you some more background on the pieces right now. But there is a way to talk about the pieces as you walk through the library. And you'll find your own way. I mean, I do it one way, and I'm happy to share that with you. But you will find your own way, and that is perfectly acceptable. For instance, there's a piece called Self-Help Mirrors. And you know, all the names are clever. Mel is a brilliant, creative artist, human being. He's probably one of the most celebrated artists that's working today. So we are really, really fortunate to have him working in this community and making the kind of investment of time that he is making in this community. And he has a brilliant sense of humor as well, which you probably have picked up if you've read the book and you have a sense of kind of how he's named the pieces. But for instance, the self-help mirror piece,
Book?
The handout.
the handout.
Oh, okay.
Don't take me too literally, yeah?
How much of this art is already installed here?
Okay, let me just finish my thought here, and then I'll get to that, because I'm gonna lose it. So the self-help mirrors, which is the piece that's in the self-help section, and the self-help section is just moved from the first floor to the third floor. It's the mirrors that sit behind the bookshelves that, you know, you're pulling out, I'm okay, you're okay. Or women who love too much, or, you know, I don't know what, how self-help books. And you pull out the book and there's a mirror behind the book, and maybe you get that it's kind of reflecting who you are. And maybe you see that piece right away, maybe you don't, but actually that's not my point. My point is I got an email the other day telling me that the self-help section had moved, and they called the piece the Mirrors of Discovery, which I thought was so interesting. It's like, where did that come from? But it completely worked. So they all are gonna kind of develop their own sense of things. And that's okay. I just wanna, you know, give you permission right up front to have it be okay. Could you repeat your question?
How much of this artwork is already installed?
Yeah. There are 11 pieces installed right now, 11 out of 33 pieces. There are, I'd have to count in my head, but there are probably about 11 more that are going to be installed or partially installed in the next 2 weeks, starting Monday. And then there'll be another group that will be installed right before the opening. There's at least one piece I know of that will not be here for the opening. And we can talk about that much later. Yeah.
It's the self-help mirror is one of the books, or just everywhere in that section is, you just pull out the book, you can see, or whole, how do you say, shelf or mirror, or?
Well, there's actually a picture in
Yeah, I
here.
saw
I'll show
picture
you.
here,
Right.
like just one books, and how do you say, like supplies type thing, so whole shelf itself is mirror.
No,
You know
no,
what
no,
I'm
just
saying?
those two. I'll show you a
Oh, okay.
photograph of what the piece looks like.
Yeah,
You'll
I
get
saw
it.
them.
Well,
Yeah.
you see it there, but when
Yeah.
you see the real one,
Oh,
you'll really
okay.
get it. So we're just gonna go back through these so you can see them a little more. Yeah.
Could you tell us what floor they're on? Because you've got room to write notes, but when you don't tell us what floor,
They're
and
actually
they're
all
not
labeled as we go through.
Oh,
It'll
okay.
say in the bottom left corner.
You have a sheet that shows what's on what floor, separate
Yeah,
change.
but- She
It
goes
shows,
fast.
it shows what's up, well, I'm gonna go through basically per floor.
Okay.
And it not only shows what floor, it shows what section the piece is adjacent to. That is one thing that will really help you as you go through the library. And, you know, if you hear me go through the library, sometimes I reference the section, sometimes I don't. It really does add a dimension to the pieces when you recognize the context. Can we turn down the lights just a little bit more? Is that possible?
Is there another switch somewhere?
It should be, they were all the way off.
It's still better than where we were.
No, is that
But
too
they
dark
can't
to take
take
notes?
notes.
No.
Yes.
Because I don't know that we have anything in here.
Okay, your eyes are gonna get used to the light a little bit from the screen. If it doesn't, Brooke is gonna give you the computer. Do you think you're gonna be able to make this work? Let's go through a couple of the ones that we've already gone through with the dark, and then if we need to turn the lights up, we will. So scream, not too loud. This is Mel's place in North Carolina, and it, again, the tiny little house is where they live. The big house, which I think used to be a hospital, is where they were. And this is just a little bit of the countryside, and again, that little sign says Higgins this way, and also there's a bunch of political signs, and I think there's also something that says Jesus saves. So you really get the sense of what's going on here. This is Baron, who is Mel's lead fabricator. It's his workspace. I just want to give you a sense of the texture of this project. Again, you know, when we can walk through the pieces, and I can explain the pieces just in terms of what I would say to people in the community. But for you guys, I want you to just kind of be inspired by what went into this. Just understand the broad, big picture. I mean, maybe that's even more important here than taking notes. It's like there was a lot of work and a lot of people that participated in this project, and that's what you need to understand. I think that's the important message today. So, you know, we have Baron's workspace, we have the barn where they stored a lot of the pieces, which is absolutely huge, and there was tobacco in it at one point, and Mel rents it out, or he doesn't rent it out, he gives it out to his neighbors to drive tobacco in, because Mel doesn't grow tobacco. But there is a tobacco, we wanted to just take a picture of it, because we thought it was kind of, you know, indicative of what goes on in Burnsville, North Carolina, which is not too far from Asheville, if folks know where Asheville is, Thomas Wolfe's hometown. And this is Curtis, and actually Harriet Traurig, who is the Director of Public Art for the City of San Jose, inside the studio. And they're actually looking at a version of Father Madgen's Pillow, which is actually here in this building, and I think we will be talking about it. Okay, Brooke. Again, here, this is on the first floor, in the children's storytelling area. You know, again, you have the goal shape, which is this shape, okay? I mean, you know, I don't have a picture of the storytelling area, but this kind of, I don't know if it's hexagon or, you know,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
yeah,
It's like an octagon.
Octagon, thank you very much. It's kind of this octagonal shape. And once Mel came up with the idea, the computer table changed, the shape of the computer table changed, the shape of the storytelling area changed, as did some of the furniture. So I just want you to see how when Mel started to insert himself into this process, a lot of things started to shift, and you got more coherence and more consistency and more layers. Mel works in layers. Why don't we go on to the next, please? Fiction. So again, this is on the first floor. It's not installed yet. You know, when you read your Nancy Drew novels, or your Hardy Boy, or any kind of mystery novel, you go into the library and you push a shelf or you pull a book, and suddenly the bookshelf twists around, it turns around, and there's a secret passage behind it. Everybody read a book like that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, we have one in this library. And this Dave Murray, who lives, again, middle of nowhere, somewhere in Yancey County, I don't even know what town this is, fabricated it in that little shed next to his house. And this is a piece right after it was fabricated. You can see how it's starting to turn. One side will be mystery books. The other side will be faux books. Now, I know, well, actually, the faux books aren't fabricated yet, I know that. But what I'll tell you is, when they are, look for what's code. Look for a cryptogram. Tell people to look for a cryptogram. I don't know what it's going to say, but I'm betting that there'll be, well, let's put it this way, I've heard rumor that there's going to be some message in there. There's gonna be some cryptogram in the words, the titles of the books. I don't know how it's gonna work, I don't have a clue. Maybe I'll have a clue what the books are in, ask me then. I'll be happy to tell you. But that, again, it's the way Mel works. You're not gonna actually, there's not a passageway behind it. And there's a little lever, or a little screw at the bottom that's going to allow the librarians to tighten it up, to make it turn slower, or to loosen it. And there will be a light shining down on it, so the panel that will turn will be illuminated. And the bookshelf looks different than the other bookshelves, but there will not be a sign on it. So unless somebody knows to turn it, or unless somebody knows that, or hears that unless there's a rumor, go check out the bookshelf on the, first floor, you're not gonna know. Unless somebody sees that it's kind of different than all the other shelves and knows that Mel works in this building, that Mel has artwork in this building, and it's like, I wonder if this is one of the pieces. You'll have to explore it. That said, there is going to be a brochure at the front desk that will be like a treasure map, that will tell people where the pieces are. So there will be a clue.
Mary,
Okay.
what triggers it to rotate?
Somebody touching it, somebody pushing it. And it actually, it's brilliant how it works. It feels great. It's absolutely gonna be worth a spin. Kids are gonna love it. Okay. Here's the self-help mirrors. The picture that what was your name?
My name's Nopal.
Nobuko was talking about is here. So you can see that there's a shelf, and on the shelf there are going to be books like in every other bookshelf. And behind the books, or behind some of the books, there are going to be these mirrors. You can see two of the shapes. That one up on the top is a Rorschach test. It's inspired by a Rorschach ink blot. You may never find these pieces. You guys know where they're going to be. Now, is the brochure going to identify exactly what shelf it's behind? No. It'll give the general.
It shows on yours, what was
I
number?
think I can only 3.
Oh.
No, it's hard for me to remember. I'll have to, yeah. And what's interesting about this is, I saw them when they were first cast, and they were beautiful. They're on their 5th casting now. It's like, what happened between 1 and 5? 1 was perfect. But when Mel looks at something, he sees things that a lot of us don't. And I see a lot of stuff. I catch a lot of flaws. The degree of perfectionism in his work and the work of his crew is pretty significant. It's pretty amazing. It's impressive. So this was casting 1. Again, I don't really know what changed. So let's go to the next one. True and through. This is installed, and this is a piece that runs through all floors of the building, just as it says in the PowerPoint. There was a sequoia, there was a redwood tree that was to the east of this building, and it was there for hundreds of years. When the architects sited this building, they tried to design the building around that tree because it was a rare tree, and they didn't want to destroy it. They didn't want to kill it. And they did design it, the building around it. And then an arborist came along. They got an arborist involved. The arborist said, there ain't no way you're going to be able to save the tree. The building is still going to be too close to the tree for it to survive. So in a meeting, and again, this is how things work. We were sitting in a meeting with the architects and somebody from the university. Now, actually, the university architect, who was kind of a skeptic on the public art thing, was like, well, Mel, maybe you should when we take the tree down, you should use it as a column in the building, ha ha. And Mel was like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. And everybody was like, what are you talking about? So what Mel did, well, actually, that started quite the cooperation effort, or the effort to cooperate between the base building and ourselves. When the tree was cut down, we basically had to swoop in and save the tree from going into the woodpile. And we trucked the tree back to Virginia to a veneer mill, and they made veneer out of the tree. They saved a little bit of it because there's a thought that there may be other pieces. There's a little bit more than this left. There might be other pieces that we could make from the tree. But basically what you have now is a column that does have this veneer. And if you're on the first floor, you'll notice that all the columns have this wood column cover on them. But you'll also notice that one of the column covers is different. And if you look up, you'll notice that it extends, you can see it through the atrium. And then as you go through the building, it becomes an orienting device in a sense. Like when you're on the 5th floor, it's in the special collections room. And it's really kind of odd in there. Has anybody seen it?
Yes.
Yeah? What do you think?
Oh, the 5th floor or the whole column?
Either.
Yes.
You
Well,
see?
that's amazing. So it's not a column, it's sections.
It's a veneer. So basically it's very thin pieces of wood that have been, I'm sorry.
The original tree is now the wood that you see on
Yes.
the outside.
Yes.
And it's in sections, it's not 8 stories tall, it's 1, 2, 3, and so on.
Yeah, it's in sections.
With
but it's-
concrete in between.
Well, it's steel underneath. Yeah, and yes, the floors do interrupt it. We installed it in 2 pieces around the column. Okay, you actually kind of see that with the ring around the bottom, which isn't installed yet. The detailing on this thing was significant. It was very difficult to coordinate and integrate with the base building. And actually, if you have hawk eyes, you can go through and see a number of places where maybe the general contractor didn't finish the ceiling quite right, and there's huge silicone joints. I mean, there are things that are kind of a little bit awkward that we notice when we walk through. Nobody will notice. It's really, it's an amazing piece, and I think the use of it as kind of an orienting element through the building is pretty interesting. And when I'm on the 5th floor, I always expect to see it somewhere else. And that it's in, that it's as far back as it is, it kind of gives me a real kind of, there's a juxtaposition in terms of my reality and my perception of where I am in the building. At any rate, okay, let's go on to the next. Brooke, if I'm forgetting anything, please tell me. This piece is not in yet. It will be on the 2nd floor. So, some of you may know your San Jose history, but there were a number of rancherias. Well, it says there were 27 original rancherias here, but actually we found out there are actually more. That's maybe another part of the story. But the California Room has documentation of 27 rancherias with, each rancheria had its own brand. And we actually had documentation of 27 brands. So and the chairs that were originally going to be in the library were all going to be these leather strata chairs. They were going to have leather saddles, basically. Well, for a number of reasons, budget being probably the most significant, the chairs were changed from the leather seats to the wood seats that you see there now. It was
what, leather to what?
The chairs mostly are wood. I mean, we have some of these chairs, but I think the significant number of chairs in the building are wood. I may be wrong. And I think it was a budgetary decision. But anyway, you see these leather chairs. We saw them originally, and Mel knew about these brands. And the idea for this piece called Roundup is that you take 3 sets of 27, so you have 27 brands, you brand the leather chairs with the brands of the original rancherias. And then these chairs are going to be allowed to roam freely on the second floor, just like cattle. So again, very quirky. Well, the funny thing is that as they started to do more research in terms of the authenticity of the brands, and the document California Room has is an original document. Well, it's not the original document, it's a copy of the original document. Barron, again, Mel's fabricator, went to Sacramento because he wanted a better image, a more clear image of the brands, and he found out there were quite a few more. But I believe they stuck with the original 27, and you can see the brands up here in the upper left. You can see the little kiln that they built to heat the brand, and then you kind of see the branding process, and then the final product, and then the final chair, sitting in the pasture, waiting to come to California to sit in to somehow roam around the second floor.
Will people have to go to the California Room to learn about a particular brand?
Yes, yes. And that's the point. I mean, that's just, thank you for bringing that up. That's the way this works. Nancy?
As opposed to an information librarian or a sheet commonly available?
No, they'll have to go to California because that helps helps reinforce the idea of circulation through the building. It's like get people in these rooms that they might not go into otherwise. If they want to do the research, that it's there. It's like get them into the library. I think that this piece is going to bring people into the library. I will tell you that in terms of public art, both historically and nationally, there is no other work like this. This is pretty cutting edge. This is a big deal. The fact that Mel Chin has done this piece, it's a big deal. Yeah, Nancy?
I have a question. What about the actual brands? I know they had to fabricate them to use. Are we going to be able to, will the city then receive those brands so that they can either go on display or that they can be used again to replace chairs or?
Most likely they'll be given to the city. You know, we probably will maintain them in some way.
Okay.
What we do with them, we've talked about it a little bit. At one point, we talked about auctioning them off so we could get more money to do more pieces. I don't know if any of us have the energy to do that because we're not fundraisers. But yeah, no, Mel has no need to keep them. They'll somehow come to us. And in terms of making more chairs, you know, maybe that would be necessary if they're made. It would probably be by Mel. But the idea that the chairs would get worn, that's okay. Yeah.
So they're wooden chairs with these brands now?
No, they're leather.
Oh, the leather.
I'm sorry. We ended up paying the incremental cost over the wood chair to keep 81 leather chairs.
Okay, got it. So 81 leather chairs,
Yeah.
mixed among, roaming around the.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And sometimes they'll all be together.
And how are they gonna roam? The staff gonna do that?
Well, it just
People.
You know, I think that in the evenings, I think they'll start out, you know, maybe in the first couple of months, they'll all be together. I've got a feeling that as time goes on, I mean, we're not gonna say these chairs need to stay together. That's, who knows what will happen with them, and what happens with them will probably be pretty interesting. Okay. Okay, well, this is the first time I've seen this slide. At the top of the second floor, and again, this is not, on top of the escalator on the second floor, there's a piece called Rosetta. It's not in yet. You'll see the cavity for it, though. Right now, it looks like a door to the computer lab. Okay, so the Rosetta Stone was, somebody else may know the story better than I, it's in the workbook. Basically, the Rosetta Stone was found, and I can't remember the year, in the 1800s.
1803.
1803. Are you reading?
Yep.
Thank you. And it was, what were the three languages? It basically allowed us to read hieroglyphics. There was Greek. Does it say it there? Was it? I may have to come back and give you that information because I don't remember it right off the top of my head. But basically there were three languages, and being able to cross-reference what the languages are allows you, in one of the languages being hieroglyphics, it allowed them to read the hieroglyphics and to kind of crack the code of what hieroglyphics. So So, you know, a significant part of the history of language and the written word, and that was very compelling to the artist team. So what they created was this piece called Rosetta. There will be a piece of frosted glass that will sit in front of these reader boards, frosted and etched glass. And the glass will actually have the imprint or the language from the Rosetta Stone. So I definitely need to get you what those 3 languages are. So what you're seeing here, this piece is being incubated at Stanford Computer Lab. So you've got these reader boards, these LED reader boards, and there's 3 different functions for this piece. There's a clock, there's an information board for the library, so that's what you're seeing here, Buddhism and Shake and Bake book author in the foyer at 8 p.m. Do not miss. So librarians will be able to type in messages that announce programming within the building. But then all around it, there are quotes from literature that somehow relates to California. And actually they're trying the body of this literature to make it more local and regional than all California, but I don't know how far they've gone. And they're actually talking about publishing an anthology at some point. And the words read across this like a ticker tape. So everything you see in color, it's like moving across the board. So you've kind of got this, you know, this layer of, it's all about language. It has kind of your modern day commercial language in the form of the ticker tape, but what it's communicating is something that's about our regional history. And then you have the more direct current information from the library. And at a certain point, the whole board goes blank and the symbol of the I Ching comes up. It was very important. We really, really wanted to incorporate other languages into this board. The LEDs had a certain limitation. So through some pretty amazing programming, one of Han Saucy's, or I guess a couple of programmers that are working with Han Saucy, figured out how to get the I Ching up there. It's really striking. Of course, we still haven't seen it with the glass in front of it, so I'll be as interested as you are. Han will be as interested as we all are, because he hasn't seen it either.
So this will be the top of the escalator.
It is,
And viewable only from the escalator area.
Yeah, you may be able to see it from across the atrium, but basically that's the major view. Depends how good your eyes are. I couldn't.
Not too many hawks around.
Yeah, good point. Everybody kind of get that?
That's
Yeah, to see it actually happening is pretty amazing. Okay. So Hearth, which is another piece on the second floor. I know some of you have seen it. Give you a little history. Mel had a meeting with librarians, some of the both university and city librarians, just a handful. And they said, oh God, the building is so big and so impersonal. It'd be great if it was a little bit homey. Well, you know, in any public art, almost every public art lecture I give, it's like, be careful what you wish for. You know, don't put that out there because you never know what will come back. Well, on the surface, this piece looks like a heart, doesn't it? How many people here have seen it? 1, 2, okay. 3? Nancy's seen it.
Yeah, I saw.
Well, if you look really, well, actually, and how many people see something that looks a little different than a,
Looks like a Middle Eastern burial chamber.
yikes?
Ossuary.
Okay, well, with that said, the firewall is actually made up of books. They're ceramic books. Okay, they took the image of, well, they took a number, they basically had a potter work with making ceramic books. And that's what makes up the inside of the fireplace. This is so you look at it on one level and you say, okay, it's a hearth. They're gonna be nice big comfy chairs that sit around it. But if you look at it a little closer and you notice the books, and you kind of look at the marble, And the tendrils of, maybe I call it smoke, that are part of that marble, it's also an acknowledgement of the history of book burning and the part it played in the history of libraries. So, and there will also be a light above that illuminates the fire cavity there. So, you know, book burning is an important part of library history. Certainly not something that should be glorified. It's not something to be proud of, but it's there. And history, you know, shouldn't be ignored. So here's our acknowledgement of that. And frankly, considering the alternatives, this is tame. I'm glad this is his acknowledgement to book burning, because I heard some of the other ideas. And I was like, you know,
Is there going to be anything inside, like a fake log with gas flames or something?
nope.
No, it's empty there.
There will be a light that lights it.
Well, you see the books, it's not empty.
Well, you see the books, and you actually have the flames, the metaphoric flames that you can see. Do you see how the marble isn't just, you know, any marble? You took great pains to locate marble that would look like smoke was coming out of it. And that's, you know, these things are very, I would say there are very few coincidences in the design of these pieces. Every little detail was thought out. Okay. So a lot of you, I think, have seen this piece, Attic, which is in the conference room just beyond us here. And it's actually it's a lecture room. So you'll be sitting in a lecture, and I don't know about you, but I sit in lectures sometimes and it's like, oh God, when am I gonna get out of here? Maybe you're doing that right now. Well, if we were in the room with Attic, you'd look up and you'd see famous ceilings of history. So you have Chartres Cathedral, you have Hagia Sophia, you have the Parthenon, you have the Sydney Opera House, you have an Indian Longhouse, you have a pagoda. What else is in there? Notre Dame. Can't remember what else is in there. Anyway.
Could you just go through that list again?
Well, you know, I'll tell you the ones that I know are in there.
Yeah.
There's Hagia Sophia, there's the Parthenon, there's a pagoda, there's the Sydney Opera House, there's Chartres Cathedral, did I already say that?
Are they within the circular mosaic, or are each of these distinct pieces in the ceiling?
Each of them are distinct pieces. So what you're seeing, I think this is Chartres Cathedral. I think that's the Parthenon.
That's Sophia.
Hagia Sophia. No, I think you're right. I think that is Hagia Sophia.
Beyond the text.
And what you're seeing here is he had a shipbuilder build the models that the plastic folks used to mold the lighting fixture, basically. It's not a lighting fixture, but to mold the ceiling. And of course, the other part of this, I'm gonna have to do it later. We can actually walk in the room and go through them. I think that would be easier for me. Another part of this is that, you know, if you look in the history of architecture, there are all those tin ceilings that were these incredible, kind of in Victorian times, that were incredibly ornate. Well, in a sense, he used some of the same technology to make these, and he was also thinking about those tin-type ceilings. But instead of using tin, he used plastic, which is the material that we so often work in. Yeah? We can walk over there and I can go through the ceilings that I recognize. Here's the Parthenon. You know, Pantheon, thank you. I'm not sure what this is. Kind of looks like Denver's
Capitol building.
Yeah, or maybe it's, a circus tent. I really don't know, I'll have to ask them.
The Jello mold.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And you can see, you know, these are two of the pieces, and they basically fit in the ceiling just like an acoustical tile. Okay, what am I saying? So this library has a Martin Luther King collection, and basically, this will be adjacent to the Martin Luther King collection, and it's called vessel. It used to be called chalice, but then somebody took offense to chalice being a religious, kind of, having religious connotations, which I think is really interesting.
They don't wanna do that with a minister.
Yeah. So what we have is a cabinet, and that's what you're seeing, this kind of rectangular thing here. And this vessel sits within the cabinet. The vessel is made out of, actually it's a carved plexiglass. They were gonna use glass, but plexiglass apparently glows better than certain glass. So if you look really closely at the silhouette and the shape of that vessel, you can see the silhouette of Dr. Martin Luther King. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what they've done is they've turned a number, they actually had a potter do it, and you can see a number of different versions up there. That's Baron, who he was certainly commenting on the fact that they were on number 5 at the time I was there last September, I think. What they're gonna do is beneath or within the cabinet, there's going to be a DVD player. And because Martin Luther King's philosophy was about human rights, they're going to scan in, or actually they'll probably end up taking photographs, digital photographs of the back of people's hands. And what I understand he's going to do is research the demographics of San Jose and take photographs that reflect the percentages of the different ethnicities. And there'll be a DVD player within the cavity of this cabinet that will project the colors of people's skin up into the chalice, or excuse me, into the vessel that will glow with these different colors. And it will be it will move, it will change, the colors will constantly be pulsating. So in a very conceptual way, it is an acknowledgement of Dr. Martin Luther King's work. There will also be a bust of Dr. King that will, I think, face this piece. It was a donation. We didn't have anything to do with it. I'm just telling you that right now. Okay.
It's not the speaking image we have on the slide.
No, it's some radio station donated it to the university, and it's ending up here. Okay, how many people know who Louis Sullivan is? 2, 3. Famous architect, did a lot of work in Chicago. He's a pioneer of the skyscraper. Or skyscrapers, what allowed skyscrapers to happen, or to be possible, to be occupied, if you will, were elevators. So Mel was he was intrigued by that. He was also intrigued with the Alice in Wonderland story as it related to children. And isn't there a way to kind of, in the same way Alice went through the looking glass, isn't that kind of what a library is about? That, you walk into the library, you open a book, and you go to a whole different world. Your perception changes. Your reality stretches. So what he's done, kind of at child level, is he's created this hatch that is in the southernmost elevator. So, the majority of the elevators have glass in them, right? Well, this one has kind of a metal interior. It's a stainless steel interior, and installed in the bottom of the back panel is this little hatch. Well, on the surface, and the detailing of it is very much like a Louis Sullivan building. Here it is up here. I think it's in Chicago. And it may have been the first skyscraper. And I guess I need to find that out for you guys. But if you look at the detailing of this, around the very top outside is the caterpillar smoking the hookah. Can you see that? Brooke, why don't you go back for a second? As you go in, there's the Mad Hatter's hat, and then there's hearts and clubs and spades and diamonds, and then the rabbit's ears, and then the croquet mallets and the croquet balls, and you get to the very, very center, it's the Cheshire Cat smile. It's very obvious when, if I were to be sitting there with you, looking in the elevator, you absolutely see it. Okay. And that's just the machine that did the die cutting. Okay. On the 8th floor and the 2nd floor, there's this piece called In and Out. Throughout the building, there are these HVAC vents that look like this. Okay, so right next to that light, there's a vent. They look pretty boring. Well, of course, the HVAC is what makes or allows the building to breathe in a sense, the heating, venting, and air conditioning system. So what Mel did was he took a huge microscopic blow-up of the breathing apparatus actually in this building, this form is plants. So it's the breathing apparatus of plants. And he recreated it and attached it to the bottom of these vents. And they are very weird, kind of ghostly alien forms. And you know, I don't know if people will see them or not. You definitely have to be looking up. You definitely, occasionally I miss them. I forget them. But then when I see them, it's like, whoa, what is going on there? These are just the guys that made them. It was much more interesting than what they did in their day-to-day life, which is fabricate the thing that holds our airbags in our cars. So this artist walks in and does this, and it's like, what is going on here? And I guess the reason I want to show these pictures of these folks from the other fabricators is there are a lot of people in North Carolina right now that feel very connected to this building. So the idea of this community that is this library, and the broadening of the community and the combination of the library and the city can even be broadened further in terms of all the fabricators that have worked on it in the hills in North Carolina and in Asheville, and students that helped initiate some of the pieces in New York at Cooper Union where Mel worked, as well as students at the university and the community. There's a very broad community that's worked on this piece. Okay. Just another shot of it. No.
They actually have to come out.
Okay, Nancy, maybe could you do the PowerPoint for me?
Oh, just to push the button. I'm gonna cut out.
Push the button, okay, show me. Perfect. I can do that.
Bye, Brooke, thanks a lot. This is Babel. Babel was inspired by Bruegel's, and actually, go to the next, because I think that there's, I'll have to go back again.
I don't like to touch buttons if I don't know exactly what one to touch.
Well, I'm not sure I do either. Where should I be touching the picture?
The space bar. Okay, now I see. All right, thanks.
Babel is going to be in the lower level. It was inspired by Bruegel's painting of the Tower of Babel, and in your workbook you actually see a picture of Bruegel's painting. It was originally going to go in the copy room, and then the copy room was no longer. So it will be on 2 walls. I actually can't remember what the section is called, but there's all these low periodical files down there. And I think they might be government records. I really can't remember now. But it's a huge wall that looks like this. And the idea of replication is part of this. So you're going to walk by and you are going to see yourself replicated, hundreds and hundreds of times in this thing. The workmanship and the craftsmanship is really beautiful, and this one is going up in the next 2 weeks, and we can't wait to see it. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is Skeptical. It's on the 5th floor. It is it's a bookshelf that will house the university thesis collection. Mel, when he was doing his original research, he went through all of the special collections. And when he went into the university special collections, he saw these incredible theses that are the blue-bound books that have gold lettering on them. And when you see a shelf of these things, or shelves of these things, they're pretty impressive and beautiful. Well, think about what a thesis is. It's all about being skeptical. It's all about asking questions. It's all about industry. When you start thinking about industry, you start thinking about, well, he started thinking about, let's forget about what we start thinking about, bees and beehives. He also had the idea that the university, and you can kind of see this woman in a hoop skirt. They found this photograph in a special collection of a woman. San Jose State was one of the first universities that allowed women. And he was very impressed by that. He liked the shape. The shape immediately made him think of a beehive. Man-made beehives. Beekeepers make skeps to house bees. They are beehives made out of straw. So the detailing on this piece, well, just quickly, it was made in 2 different places. There are signs all over here that say no trespassing. The word on the street, if you will, or in the forest at the time when I was there is, what was that guy's name, Rudolph, the Atlanta bomber? Eric Rudolph?
Yep.
He's somewhere in these hills, and he has been for a couple of years. The
Yeah, he
FBI
was.
is everywhere, and he was, exactly. They knew it. And, you know, these are people that don't, they do not want to live in the city, and they do not want you on their property. And they're, you know, many of them are fairly conservative. It's pretty interesting. So I just wanted to show you, you know, you go down this road maybe 3 miles, and you get to this little garage, and this is actually Baron's daughter, Mira. We're using her for scale there. Where is this? This is, again, in North Carolina. Somewhere in the hills. I have no idea where I was. They didn't blindfold me, but I have no idea where I was. Okay, why don't we go to the next one, because I think there's some details.
Mary, we saw this downstairs when we took the docents on a walkthrough of the building. So we got to see this.
Yeah, it was in place on the 5th
Yes.
floor by one
Yeah.
of the view windows.
Right.
Exactly. And hopefully very soon we'll be able to see the books in it. Well, you can see the detailing of the straw. And it's actually detailed around the outside. And just a thing I find very interesting, he had 2 carvers work on it. Hi again, bye again.
I was canceled.
Oh, you were canceled.
You're redundant.
I got canceled. So I'm back.
Late.
Well, our fortune. I think it's really interesting that he had 2 wood carvers work on the straw detailing. And because he didn't want us to be able to notice that there were 2 different hands, every other piece, one carver's work is every other piece. So he spaced them in such a way that you wouldn't notice them. And actually, if you look really closely, you can tell that, but it's really difficult. And, you know, again, this is just an attention to detail, to think about that. You know, to know in order to get this piece done, you have to have 2 people work on it, but how do you get it to look like it's a cohesive piece? And Mel did a little bit of the carving himself. Harriet didn't, but she's watching closely. So, at any rate, let's go to the next one. You've seen, here's the finished piece. Oh, this is a sign that was in the studio. Everyone brings joy to my shop, some when they enter, others when they leave. I mean, there's just like humor in those hills. That again adds to the texture. I mean, there are tons of slides we had of little quirky things like that we just don't have time for. Okay. Golden Gate. So if you saw Skeptical, you probably saw Golden Gate. And I'll tell you a little background on it. And why don't you go to the next so they can just see what it looks like? Great. That tour I told you about, where the historians took Mel around, well, because Hans Sossi speaks, you know, I don't know how many Asian languages, we happened to be able to get into a Buddhist temple somewhere on the east side. I don't think I could find it again if I tried. And the monks, these really wonderful creatures, brought us into one of the shrine rooms. It's a very large shrine room, maybe 3 times the size of this room. And all of the walls were built in cubby holes, and in each of the cubby holes there was a beautiful golden Buddha. And each golden Buddha had somebody's name on it. Well, this is how the design process worked. We went back into the design room, we had a charrette afterwards, and the discussion went from, well, wasn't that just a magnificent sight? what do we worship here? What do we worship? Well, I guess you all, since you've seen it, you guys all know what these are. The conversation went to cars. And somebody said, well, what is about that size? Carburetors. And then they started kind of thinking about the Golden Gate Bridge and the image of cars going across it. And basically what you have are, I believe there are 81 different carburetors. Carburetors that they got from junkyards all the way to more precious ones that were like Model Ts or Model A's. Somebody can probably correct me there. Brooke can.
Well, you could have either a Model T or a Model A.
Okay. That they, paid, more than they paid at the junkyard to attain. Then what they did, could you go back to that slide, previous slide? Then they picked them apart so that they became these kind of sculptural elements into themselves. They sandblasted them. That's Buddy over there who's doing the sandblasting. They were teaching Buddy to read. Now, I think that's really interesting. They paid him and started teaching him to read. Then they cleaned them off. They sandblasted and cleaned them off. They were painted red so that it's the base of what you would use to gold leaf. And then you see the gold. So let's go to the next slide. And here's the piece, the detailing on the shelving or the mullions from the glass storefront were all coordinated with the architect with quite a bit of trouble and or effort, I shouldn't say trouble, but effort on everybody's part. The architects were marvelous. And it's supposed to look kind of like the Golden Gate Bridge.
So are they gold plated?
I was going to skip over that, that detail. Let's keep the mystery. Well, actually, I will tell you, they are gold painted. That was the one place that we had to save money. It killed Mel. He really wanted to gold leaf them. But the cost of doing it and the sacrifice to the other projects would have been too great. If you can, I think the mystery is nice. So if you can kind of, unless you're asked, I mean, why not?
Don't tell.
Yeah, last ask, don't tell. The sign is going to move. The sign from the blue sign, the big blue sign is going to move. Okay. Steinbeck's Fisher, outside the Steinbeck room. Steinbeck wrote the foreword to Pacific Tides, which was Brickett's book, and Brickett's was Doc in Cannery Row. And part of his foreword, it said, the process of rediscovery might be as follows. A young, inquisitive, and original man might one morning find a fissure in the traditional technique of thinking. Through this fissure, he might look out and find a new external world around him. So, in the same way as the Alice in Wonderland piece works, in the same way as the philosophy for the overall project, the concept for the overall project works, this is reinforcing it once again, that idea. Someday you'll walk into the library, you'll be looking for one thing, and hopefully it will open, just by coming in the library or having access to the library, it will open a whole new world for somebody, for some kid, or some adult, or any of us. And what you have is a diorama. You go to the science museums and usually you see these big dioramas with big grizzly bears in them. Well, instead, this one is much more subtle, and it's a piece that, maybe you'll see, maybe you won't. It's kind of tucked away on the 5th floor. And what they did was they had Bob Batchelor, who was the historian on the team, took a trip. He took the reverse trip as the characters took from the Great Book of Brass. So he went from California to Oklahoma, and all along the way he collected soil samples. So right now you see, if you were to go out there, you would see the diorama, but it's not filled yet. And what it will be filled with is soil from all these different collections. And then there will be artifacts. And we're working with the Steinbeck collection both here and in Monterey, as well as independently, to collect small artifacts that are indicative of that period of time. So that's really the piece. And there's been a documentary. They made a documentary along the way. They had a small grant I don't know actually what the status of that is. There's actually a PowerPoint presentation that has a lot of documentation of this trip, yeah.
Talking of documentaries, will Mel be documenting his artwork in a book or publication?
The brochure is at this
Just the
point,
brochure.
is what we're working on. There has been a documentary, there's been footage taken of the process all the way from, and we weren't that great with it, I have to say, but we did have a couple of meetings taped. We had a charrette with San Jose State students taped. Hans Sauce's father has done documentary films. He's taken a lot of footage back in North Carolina. He's gone through the building with us at least once. And at least I've heard a lot of rumors on this project, that this film is in the making, and I'm sure they'll be using part of Bob Batchelor's footage as well. This is the demolition of the library, and this is from Bob's PowerPoint presentation of the trip, and that's Bob doing a little collection. It's extensive, so we cut it all out, just to show you that it really did happen. Okay, move on. This is probably one of my favorite pieces. It's called Sour Grapes, and it was the origin of the piece. And I actually do tell this story when I go to this piece, and when I'm talking about it to folks. The piece was created, or the origin of the piece was a meeting, community meeting at the San Jose Convention Center. And Mel asked, "What's your favorite book?" And somebody said, Aesop's Fables. And he was like, "Okay, great. Which one?" And she said, "Oh, the one with the fox and grapes." If you guys know the story, who knows the story? Tell the story. In brief.
There was a fox that came along and he wanted to eat some grapes. And there was another little animal or something. And anyway, the fox tried to reach the grapes and tried to reach the grapes, jumped up, climbed on everything. And at the end, he just said, "Oh, heck." He said they were probably sour anyway.
Right. Well, again, context is everything. This is in the business section. So especially in this economy, I think that's pretty poignant. The workmanship and craftsmanship on this piece is pretty amazing. Mel, after the first try, Mel told the guy that was doing the wrought iron, no, go outside and look at a vine. Well, you can't see it from this photograph, but if you look at the piece up close, I've seen a lot of wrought iron work. I've never seen anything that looks like that. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I had a chance to see this one day when Bob and I were cruising through the building, and actually, you have to touch it, and you really can't. You have to touch it to know that it's not a real grapevine. It actually looks real, and it looks like it's coming and growing right through the ceiling. It's amazing. It's really beautiful.
Definitely don't encourage people to touch it.
No, you can't. Well, you can't reach it, really.
No, you can't reach it. We're getting close.
Oh.
So that's it.
That's it.
That's in place.
That's in place. And there are business books all around. This piece is Owl of Minerva, and you see Mel, I'm like, "What's this owl gonna look like, Mel?" And he took one of those, bird scaring plastic owls and cut the head off, and he's like, "I'm gonna use this." He was just kidding, because what he has been doing has been pursuing, there are a number of scientific facilities around the country that have these big great horned owls that are being used for scientific purposes, and he has been able to attain the use of, I'm not going to tell you how many, because we've had a couple of failures, and it's a big process to get the use of them, and you can see Harriet helping Mel with paperwork. Paperwork isn't really Mel's forte. The piece is going on the 7th floor in the philosophy section, or near the philosophy section. Hegel's quote, "The Owl of Minerva," in the book it actually gives more of a quote, but the basics. "The Owl of Minerva spreads its wings only with the falling of the dusk," meaning that any culture, any society can really only view itself and have perspective on itself after kind of the rise and the fall of that culture. So you can't have perspective of something until you've gone beyond it. This is going to be a beautiful piece. When the owl is cast, actually, do we have another image here? It it's not actually, I guess an owl died, and Farron, hopefully, was hopeful, he froze the darn thing. It was obviously too small. This one on the right is huge. And they're working on the casting. That will not be done till the end.
So it's a stuffed owl that's cast?
Yeah, what they have to do is make a wax mold of it. But in making that wax mold of it, it has to be done just perfectly in order to get a good casting, and it's been a challenge. Okay. I'm trying to hurry up a little bit. Tectonic tables.
We've seen these tables too, Mary.
Great, they're on the 8th floor. Of course, they are, if you put them together, they are in the shape of Land, which was the first continent before the continental drift. And they were fabricated in Elberton, Georgia, which is the nation's largest producer of gravestones. It's also, I just love this, it's the Northern Georgia's quality retirement community, founded in 1803. I think there's some nice juxtaposition there. And there's a story about this woman, but she works in the stone place, and I don't think we have time for that. She works in the stone place that fabricated these. There you go. California is a very geologically volatile place with all of our earthquakes, so he's taken that concept and manifested it physically. So these are tables that are meant to be sat around. They are on casters, although the casters will be locked. I see that they're drifting around right now. Every time I go up there, they're in a different place, which is great that people are having fun with it. Maybe people will be unscrewing the casters. We've talked about locking them, because they are, I don't know if anybody's moved them. It's okay if you have. They're really heavy, and I think that they can be rather dangerous depending on whose hands they're in. Each of the pieces of granite comes from a different continent. So Asia is Asian granite. I think that's the one that has the little garnets in it. Africa is African, it's from the continent of Africa. I'd have to sit with Mel to tell you which is which. So I'll have to get back to you on that. Okay. Gong and scale on the 8th floor, that will be installed in the next group, so in the next 2 weeks. It's a cast bronze scale. Actually, it's not cast anymore, I'm sorry. It's, what they've done is they've sculpted it out of sheet copper. I think it's copper, not bronze right now. I'll also have to get back to you on that. But at any rate, there was a parasite that was found in fruit trees here in San Jose, and they do call it the San Jose scale. And as this note says, it was found or discovered in the 1880s. And what they used to fight this blight was ladybugs, Japanese ladybugs or Chinese ladybugs. And it just so happened that in that same year was one of the first labor strikes by Chinese workers. So the striker is the head of a ladybug. So there are many, many levels that this piece works on. Zeno's books, mathematics section, not one of my fortes. Zeno was a philosopher, and he basically said that motion was impossible because if you go to any point where any number is you can divide it by 2. Any number is divisible. So what it said, his reasoning was that since the space between any 2 points can be infinitely subdivided half and then half and then half again, no moving object could ever reach its goal. So what he's done is he had this kind of ethereal, very white mermaid-looking woman who worked at the Shakespeare Library and has worked with original Shakespeare books. She bound books that go from this large size to half that size to half and half and half again. And they're bound the way traditional books have been bound. They're actually bound, the binding is goat skin. So when you see these things, they actually kind of have this very They glow, they're beautiful. The piece took a very long time to fabricate. One of the reasons was that we were importing goat skin just when mad cow disease struck a couple of years ago. And there was a quarantine on all of the kind of skins that were coming in for any kind of use, which I just think is kind of an interesting little fact. There are going to be bosses that are going to be in the front of these books that all have a meaning too. I haven't seen the bosses yet. They have something to do with turtles, which is another myth, and I'll have to find out all about that. Layers and layers and layers get added to these things during the fabrication. So again, it's just more texture. And I think is this the last one? Oh, no. Reflecting pools. How many of you guys have seen
We saw
this?
these too.
So of course, you know.
Several floors.
Okay, great. So it's a commentary on the state of the preciousness of water, the effects of water being erosion, and what a precious resource it is. So on the top floor, the sink is really, really small, and as you move down to the 4th floor, they get progressively larger. Of course, you're not going to get that immediately. I mean, I think it's obvious when you walk into the bathroom. It's like, what is going on here? These are very quirky, weird things. Maybe someday you'll notice if you go to the bathroom on the 8th floor and then you go to the 4th floor, you'll notice that there's something weird. And am I seeing correctly? And you probably will have to do a little research to get to the bottom of this. Okay. And this is kind of the progression. We've got Curtis over here, and this is Mel. They actually dug a hole in the ground and they they put plaster in it, so they cast the impression of the hole. And then they did a wax casting of that. And then they sent that off to a stainless steel fabricator, and they cast the things to stainless steel. And then we sent it all off to the base building fabricator to integrate it into the countertops. And that was the deal. Ouch. We're a little out of order, but on the 5th floor, Father Magin was a Spanish Nostradamus, and he predicted the San Francisco earthquake, fire, as well as, what else did I remember that there? Usually when I'm talking about, now I'm reading it of course, usually when I'm talking about it I remember the other thing. But at any rate, it was fabled that his premonitions or his predictions came through his dreams, and he slept on an adobe pillow. And this piece is adobe. You can sit on it. It will be in the California room, although it's sitting kind of skeptical right now. And these little kind of dark crevices that you see here on the edge, they will actually be filled with gold before the piece is finished. And that will happen on site. And you can see, this is the same photograph you saw in the beginning. This is one of maybe, I think there were 4 or 5 different textures that they put on this before they ended up here. So, you know, the incredible effort that went into all of these pieces. Okay. And the end. It's really tiring to be an artist.
Did you see that pillow really is adobe?
It is adobe.
Clay and straw
You can
and.
see the straw.
Yep.
Oh.
There is a substructure that keeps it together. Yeah. Okay, well, that's the presentation, and I know I've gone on and on and on and on, and I don't know how useful this is for you.
Very
Good.
Bravo.
I'm sorry, what?
This is library establishing museum too. Feel like museum.
Well, it is museum quality work,
Yeah.
definitely. Mel is definitely collected. And I guess, you know, to me, I think that the best way to see the works and to understand how to present them is to walk through the library. I'm happy to, you know, if you wanted me to, we could go to 2 pieces on this floor and I could talk about them. Or we can just do it some other time.
If there's already more time.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
let's do
works
it
for me.
another time, after we sink in with this a little bit.
That works for me.
Perfect. We'll schedule that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, if we can wait a couple of weeks, then you'll have, 22 works. And I think that maybe what we need to do is divide them up into days. I
Do
think
it
that
in
trying-
July, during July.
Probably the end of July. I think that you can't really take them all in one. To
Right.
do these 11 pieces, it takes me an hour to walk somebody through it. And typically, just to tell you what I do, is I start on the first floor, I talk about true and through, and then I take the elevator up to the 8th floor, and I walk down, and I end in the storytelling room. So, I don't know, there may be something about when you do the tour of I'm thinking out loud here, but that when you do the tours of these pieces, that you divide them up into, like tour 1 and tour 2, or,
Yeah.
something like that. Because there is absolutely no way to do them all at once.
That's right.
And
Because
maybe
each
the-
tour will be about an hour, and so, we're gonna be talking about gathering and dividing and personalizing the tour for the group that's going through, and then also for the docents' interest.
Mhm.
So, because there's a lot of ways, so every tour can be different, basically.
Yeah. Again, there will be a brochure that we are producing right now. When exactly it's gonna be finished, I can't tell you. We were aiming to have it finished, at the opening on August 1st, but of course, there's a challenge in terms of the photographs. And for instance, we thought we would have, skeptical photographs, and one thing led to another, and the books didn't get in when we were here to take the photographs. So, we're thinking about that. We're trying to figure out how we can make the piece. It's gonna be a beautiful piece, and we don't wanna compromise it because of the timing. For the opening, I think we're gonna have some kind of quick and dirty piece that, just like a Xerox, that can go in, some kind of these book bags, I guess, that are getting handed out. But there will be a piece, no cheat sheets, no cheat plaques at the pieces themselves. Bob?
Will the artist be involved in the installation, or will Mel be here when they install the pieces?
Mel, the major fabrication and installation is done by Baron and a whole crew of characters, definitely. Mel probably will not be here for the installation. Mel has been intimately involved in every detail of this thing. Mel does come out, he was out maybe 3 weeks ago. We spent a Saturday walking through the building and making decisions on X, Y, and Z, how this would be detailed, what needed to be changed. When this piece goes in, it has to look like this. This is very much a team effort. And if you saw in the first slide that Brooke put together, it's the credit on the piece, if we had our way, we'd just say Mel Chin. But Mel has been insistent that it's Mel Chin, Ann Saucy, Bob Backward, James Millar, et al. And the et al., it will be a huge list inside, because again, for him, it's all about the community that's created. This library, in a very large sense, at least to me in my mind, it's about creating a new community. It's about creating a community that's more integrated. And I think that Mel thinks about that. I asked Mel once, Mel is very much in demand. He's asked to do shows, he's asked to participate in competitions, to do lectures, this and that, all around the world. And I said to him one day, how do you make a decision? How do you decide what work to do and what jobs and what projects to take on? And he said, more and more, I make my decisions of what I do based on what's going to bring me closer to my humanity. And I really think that's really beautiful. And I think it's reflected in his work.
How old is he about?
50-ish.
Yeah.
He's pretty timeless. He's pretty ageless. It's pretty hard to tell. Any questions? Any other questions? Is this,
This is
really...
wonderful.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
just
long.
very,
Wonderful.
very intriguing and just want to know more.
Great.
It's very inspiring.
Well, go to the books.
Yeah.
Will there be any type of public relations designed around this artwork and Mel. I mean, I could see this being very popular.
We're working on that.
Good,
That's
yeah.
sort of my field, and we need to get some things together out to local press as well as national press.
We do have the art and technology writer at the San Jose Mercury very involved, has been from the beginning. He's kept close tabs on what's going on. And we've talked about it quite a bit.
Certainly deserves a
Yeah,
lot of
this could
variety.
be the piece de resistance, could hold it.
Well, we think so. Like I said, it's an incredibly exciting piece. In the public art world, there's nothing like it. And we just actually came back from a conference in Portland. There's another public art conference in Washington, D.C. next year. We really hope to do a very significant presentation about this. People know Mel, though, out there. They know him. And a lot of people, there's definitely a buzz about what he's doing here. I mean, most of his projects are pretty compelling and interesting. When he's got his fingers in something, people are curious. So, again, big pieces, big landmark pieces, small little intimate pieces, meet me at the Skeptical. Yeah, I do think it will be a very, it'll be a draw. It'll be a draw. Yeah.
Is it still, I heard that after the building is open, he was intending to come back and design other pieces
Oh.
based on what he saw,
Thank
the way
you.
people were using?
I thought you were going to ask something else, but thank you. Yeah, one of the other unique things about this project, and again, it kind of is a testament to the way he is dealing with this concept of community and the way he thinks that, well, I'll just leave it at that, the way he thinks about community. He reserved a portion of the budget to design an additional group of artworks after the building is open. So people that are saying, well, we weren't involved and we wish we were involved, there will be an opportunity for them to work, with Mel one more time to create a final group. Now, it's only $65,000, and they're already, these public art projects are incredibly political. And they bring out kind of the best and the most difficult of a community. And there are already people that are, saying, well, we want a piece, and this is what we want, and we want some of that money, and, we want Mel to do this or that. And, some of it, everybody will get to say their piece. Yes, we'll have another meeting, there will be something, or, a number of things done with that money after the fact. Yeah.
It'll be very exciting to see what pieces people are really intrigued with and what, I'm sure, will be probably the source of a lot of that, right? That information, what,
The feedback.
yeah.
Well, we are really interested, and maybe we can set something up, maybe this is our public art email that can get that feedback back to us. We're actually gonna launch a website. Do you have any
I
idea
was
where that
thinking
is?
about it this morning, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're almost there, we think. We think.
Yeah, I
We're not
think-
managing it, but, I think I asked a couple of days ago. She said soon.
Yeah.
A website
For
dedicated
public art, for
to
the
the
San
park.
Jose Public Art Program. And actually, thank you, Bill. The university website designers are working on doing a website that addresses this piece. So we will be able to give more detailed information than we will be able to do in the brochure. I gotta say, I don't know when it's gonna be done. I'm inching along in terms of my time that I'm able to devote to writing the text. I'm trying to write a little bit more than you have in your books right now. So there's a website associated with this piece that will be part of the overall library website. And then the San Jose Public Art Program will also have a website that this will be linked to. And we think it'd be great if you'd refer people to our website, because what I will also say, kind of tooting our own horn, which I don't do that much, the San Jose Public Art Program is extremely prominent in terms of what's going on in public art in the nation. And I think, actually maybe I should have started off somewhere else to say that the San Jose Public Art Program is funded by an ordinance that requires 2% of any capital improvement project to be set aside for public art. On this building, the budget for the public art was $920,000. So in a sense, that's only like 1% of the whole building because it was only on the city portion. So we were able to do, Mel was able to do a lot with $920,000. And some of that was a testament to doing work in the hills of North Carolina. Because if we were to fabricate the same pieces here, it would have cost an awful lot more. And he is absolutely compensating those people back there. And I would say Mel is probably not making a penny on this.
Has the artist been selected for the City Hall project?
Oh, yeah.
That's not
There-
Mel.
That's not Mel, no. We also have a requirement that an artist has to, there's 2 years between any projects. But frankly, I don't think he would take another project here. He's already kind of made his contribution. So, yeah, in that our public art program is fairly well funded. At 2% is probably, there are other programs that are 2% programs in the country, and 2% is probably I think it's the maximum. There may be some, do you know?
And not that I'm aware of.
2%,
Yeah.
yeah, but there are a number of other programs that have 2% programs. We are doing a lot of really cutting edge work. We're working with a lot of very interesting artists, really good artists. We're doing a lot of work in the neighborhoods and the communities. Our outreach in terms of public process and the way we select artists with community input is, there is probably no other, I can't think of any other community in the country, and I know a lot of them, and we just came from a conference that does it. We get calls constantly about how do we run our program. Harriet Trowery, who is the director of our program, just won a Lifetime Achievement Award in Portland, which is really exciting and really wonderful for the program. So just to give you context, when you're walking people through the building, we're doing really good things. We're doing really cutting edge things. We're very, just to give people context, we're a prominent program, and if we weren't, we wouldn't be able to draw this kind of artist. If we didn't have the talent to manage this kind of project, we wouldn't be able to draw this kind of artist. And it's a pretty cool place to work right now.
Can I ask you a question about public art other than the library? On the walls of Villa Paseo,
Yeah.
they were there, then they weren't, and they were going to, now they're painted over,
Well,
what is
there was
the
never any
status?
artwork there.
No, what was going
But
to be.
there was
and
artwork
then-
planned. We hear about it in a staff meeting every week. I think that it's moving forward. I'm not managing the project. It's moving forward,
Yeah,
isn't
it
it?
is, yeah.
Slowly. There are
Slowly.
legal
It's
issues
been a
that
lot
are
of
being
years.
dealt with.
But there is something planned for
Yes.
those spots?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd heard that,
Turn off the tape.
yeah, I'd heard that
seriously.
people
Okay.
couldn't agree, and that there were some really incredible proposals. Something about drugs and people,
Yeah.
that was
There
from
was-
somebody at Paseo Plaza. I'm